Hi, this video will be on spreadsheets and we'll be covering the following topics: basic spreadsheet terminology, the structure of a worksheet, how to add rows and enter data into a spreadsheet, the difference between a constant and a formula, how to enter a formula, Excel functions, copy and pasting, relative references, filling cells, and absolute references. Throughout the video, we will have activities for you to do. If you haven't already downloaded the workbook, please do so using the link. We have included markers between each topic for your convenience. Let us first see what a spreadsheet looks like by starting Excel. First, let's go over some basic terminology so you will understand what I'm talking about later when I explain concepts to you. This is what a blank spreadsheet looks like. In Excel, a spreadsheet is also called a worksheet. If we look down here at the tab, we are currently on worksheet 1, called sheet 1. We can make more worksheets by pressing the plus button. As you can see, the second tab is named sheet 2. Each worksheet is given a unique name so they can be identified. A collection of worksheets make a workbook. You can think of a workbook as a physical notebook and a worksheet as a page in the workbook. We can rename a worksheet if we like by right-clicking on the tab and then selecting Rename. Now that we know some basic terminology, I'll show you the structure of a worksheet. Let's open that workbook you downloaded. You will see this pop up asking whether you want to enable macros. In this video, we will not need macros, which are computer programs that you can use with Excel, so you can choose any option. In a spreadsheet, there are rows and columns. Rows are labeled as integers such as 1, 2, 3, and can go up to more than 1,000,000. Columns are labeled with alphabetical letters starting with A, B, C. Once we get up to Z, the next columns are labeled as AA, AB, AC, etc. The intersection of a row and column forms a cell. Let us click on cell B3, which is the intersection of column B and row 3. This cell has the cell reference of B3. The usual convention of writing a cell reference is the column letter first, then the row number. This forms the unique reference for each cell. If you chose the cell with the reference of E10, then you are correct. This is because it is at the intersection of column E and row 10. We should note here that the letter of the column always comes first in the cell reference, followed by the number. If you click on a new cell, it is now the cell with the bolded border. The cell with a bolded border is called the active cell. You can also see the row and column is highlighted for the active cell. The active cell is C4. If you look over here, it displays the active cell, which is C4. This box is called the name box. Now that we are familiar with the spreadsheet, let's do an activity. Here we have a spreadsheet of students' marks. This is the spreadsheet with the name studrec_1 in the workbook that we have provided. Imagine we forgot to enter Mary's marks and we want to insert her marks between John and Paul. In the screen at the top of the video shows the original spreadsheet where Mary's marks are missing. The screen at the bottom of the video shows the spreadsheet after we have added Mary's marks. Now, I will show you how to add a row of data in the spreadsheet. First, right-click on the cell that you want to insert a row. Then, choose Insert on the drop-down menu. Now that I've added the row, let's enter Mary's name. So click on A4, which is the empty cell, and type Mary. Now let's enter Mary's first mark into B4, which is 85. Why don't you try and replicate what I have done and also enter Mary's last 2 marks. If your spreadsheet looks the same as the spreadsheet on the bottom of the video, then you have done it correctly. I'm not sure if you have noticed, but can you see how the text is aligned to the left and the numbers are aligned to the right? This is Excel telling you the type of information is stored as. So text such as the student names are stored as type string. The test marks are stored as numeric type. Collectively, we call these constants because the spreadsheet will not change the value of that cell. You might be wondering, how can a spreadsheet change the value of a cell? Well, we can actually write a formula into a cell. If I type B equals B2 into cell I2 equals B2 and then press enter, you can see that in I2, it now contains 100, which is what is in B2. If I change the 100 in B2 to 50, you can now see in I2, it has also changed from 100 to 50. We can check if a cell is a formula or a constant by making the cell an active cell and looking at the formula bar, which is up here above the column letters and next to the FX. If we click on I2, where I typed equals B2 into, we can see in the formula bar that there is an equal sign in front of B2, so this is a formula cell. If we click on the cell B2, the formula box will display 50 with no equal symbol prefixed to it, so it is a constant cell. By having the equal symbol as the first character, it tells Excel that we are writing a formula and not a constant. A formula can be a combination of numeric constants, which on this sheet are the test marks. It can also contain cell references, as we have just done so with the equals B2 in cell I2. It is by using cell references that allows us to change the value of a cell. Whenever the value of a cell that we are referring to changes, it will change the value of the formula cell accordingly. Cells are either a constant or a formula. Now that we have finished with this demo, let's change B2 back to 100. Changing it back to 100, and then you'll press enter, and then delete the contents in cell I2. Now let's calculate the average of Susie's marks by using a formula. So each student has 3 test marks, test 1, test 2, and final. To calculate the average, we need to sum all these 3 marks and then divide the total by 3. So let's type that into the formula bar for cell E2. So we'll go equals, open bracket, B2 plus C2 plus D2, close the bracket, then type the divide sign and then put 3 and then press enter. As you can see, we can also include arithmetic operators in the formula bar, such as plus, minus, divide, and multiply, etc. We can also use numeric constants, in this case the number 3. Once we press enter, Excel will execute the calculation and we get the result of 88.7. If you double click on E2, you will see the cell references in E2's formula highlighted in different colors. This is to help you visually make sure the cells you used in the formula is actually the cells you wanted to use. Lastly, I want to highlight that just like in maths, the BOD/MAS rules apply in Excel. Without the brackets, Excel would sum the values in B2 and C2 first, then add the value of D2 after it has been divided by 3, which would be the incorrect way to calculate the average. If you picked option C, then congratulations, you are correct. Even though both options B and D had the equal symbol, it is not the first character in the formula cell. Excel will view options A, B, and D as strings. I hope you saw that the formula in cell E2 automatically updated its calculations. We now know how to calculate the average of one student's marks. What if we want to find the class average for each test? You might be thinking, oh man, do I have to type every cell reference into the formula and manually count the number of marks? Don't worry, because Excel has built-in functions we can use. A function performs a predefined computational task. Let's click on cell B8 to calculate the average class mark for test 1. Similar to formulas, we need to have the equal symbol as the first character, and we can also see the content of the cell in the formula bar. Built-in Excel functions are similar to predefined functions that you have used in Python. So you can think of a function as a formula that has been written for you. Let's type equals average, open bracket, B2 colons B6, close bracket, and press enter. The function returns 83.6. The colon notation defines a range of cells. The notation B2 colon B6 tells Excel to use cells B2 and B6, and those cells that are in the tightest rectangle that enclose these two cells. The function average is one of the many functions provided by Excel. We will talk more about functions in later videos. If you typed equal sum, open bracket, B2 colons D6, close bracket, then you got it right. Now that you know how to write formulas and functions, you might wonder, if we use these formulas in many cells, do we have to type it out manually every time? The answer is no. That would be tedious. We can copy and paste the formula that we want to use in different cells. Let's do that to get the average of John's marks using the formula we have inputted in cell E2. So click on E2. To copy a cell, we first need to click on it, making it the active cell. Then we can either use the keyboard shortcut Control-C for Windows and Command-C for Mac to copy the cell. To paste the contents, we need to click on the cell we want to paste in, and then use the keyboard shortcut Control-V for Windows and Command-V for Mac. As expected, we get the average of John's marks, but let's check if Excel copy and pasted the formula correctly. Let's click on the cell E2 and look at the formula bar. The formula in E2 is B2 plus C2 plus D2 divided by 3. Now let's click on E3 and look at the formula bar. The formula in E3 contains B3 plus C3 plus D3 divided by 3, which is not exactly the same formula in E2. It seems Excel has adjusted the cell references to use John's test marks without us doing anything. So how does Excel adjust the formula? It is done so through the use of relative referencing. As you can see, when we copied the formula in E2 and pasted it in E3, we shifted down one position. So Excel has relatively adjusted the formula down one cell, i.e. from row 2 to row 3. This relative reference will also adjust if we shifted up to the left or to the right. When shifting vertically, the number part of the cell reference will change. When shifting horizontally, the letter part of the cell reference will change. I'll now show you the concept of relative reference through a hypothetical example. Let's go to the worksheet named Relative Ref Demo, which is the tab next to the current worksheet, StuRec_1. There is also a worksheet named Relative Ref Demo Complete. You can use that as reference to check your work. Here we have a grid of numbers from 1 to 24. I have typed a formula in cell A7 beforehand. If I click on A7 now, and if you direct your attention to the formula bar, you will see the formula in A7 is B2 plus D3. I have highlighted the cells being used in the formula in this formula in A7 in blue. Now let's hypothetically say we need to use this formula in cell C7. So from what we have learned, in a situation like this, we would copy the formula in cell A7 into C7. Let's do it now. First, we click on A7, Control C, then click on C7 and Control V. If we double click on the cell C7, you can see D2 plus C3 in the formula bar, and the two cells are highlighted here and here. I have pre-colored these cells for you in red. If we have a look at the positions of where the two red cells are, they are both two cells to the right of the blue cells. This is because we have pasted the formula in A7 two cells to the right. Therefore, according to relative referencing, the formula will adjust by shifting the cell references by 2. And since we have shifted horizontally, the letter part of the reference changed. Let's try copy and pasting A7 again, but this time to the cell below it, A8. Control C and Control V. If we double click on A8, you can see B3 plus D4 in the formula bar, and the two cells are highlighted. I've pre-colored the cells for you in green. Since we pasted the formula in the cells below A7, the cell references shifted down 1. And since we have shifted vertically, the number part of the cell reference changed. I hope you can now see the pattern and understand how relative references work. If you chose F1 plus H2, you got it correct. E6 is 4 spaces to the right and 1 space up from A7. This means the letter part of the first reference will go from B to C, D, E, F. The second reference will go from D to E, F, G, and H. As for the number part of the first reference, it will go from 2 to 1, and the second reference will go from 3 to 2. Now you might be thinking, what if I need to use that formula 1,000 or more times? I might not need to type it, but I don't want to copy and paste it into every single cell that many times. Well, don't worry. Let me show you how to fill cells. Filling cells in the context of Excel means to copy and paste a cell's contents into multiple cells in one action. Filling cells are not limited to formulas. You can use this technique with constants like numbers and text and functions. Previously, we calculated the average mark for Susie and John. Let's calculate the rest of the student's average mark. First, click on the cell E3, where our average formula is located. This is now the active cell. On the bottom right corner of that cell, you should see a small square dot. Hover your cursor over it and it should change from an empty white plus sign to a solid black sign. Click and drag it down to fill cells E4 to E6. When we fill cells, we can only do a single row or column at a time. Isn't it great to have all these tools to make your life easier? Before we move on to the next topic, let me tell you one more tip that will make your life even easier. I'll go to a blank worksheet to demonstrate this by clicking the plus button, which is located at the bottom of where the tabs are. Let's say we want to have the first 10 even numbers in column A. Instead of manually typing 2, 4, 6 all the way up to 20, I can type 2, 4, then select both these cells. You can see the little square dot is located in the last selected cell. We now do the same thing. Click and drag it until row 10, hence giving us the first 10 even numbers. Excel can generate arithmetic progressions based off the pattern of your first 2 inputs. Let's go back to StuRec 1 worksheet. You might have noticed the weightings below the class average row on the worksheet. It's highlighted in yellow. The weightings refer to each exam's weight in the overall course. So if we were to calculate each student's course mark, we would have to multiply each test mark with each of the corresponding weightings for that test, and sum all those marks together. Let's try doing that with what we have learnt. So in cell F2, we would type equals B10 times B2 plus C10 times C2 plus D10 times D2. Press enter, and that gives us 87.5. The next step will be to fill the rest of the cells. Let's do that using the square dot method. So click on that, square dot method. We don't seem to get the results we were expecting. Excel is returning errors. Let's investigate why by double-clicking on F3. Looking at the formula bar, or the cells highlighted, it shows that we are multiplying John's test marks with nothing, i.e. cells B11, C11, and D11, which are empty. This is due to relative referencing. When we moved the original formula from F2 to F3, all the cells references also shifted down one cell, hence from B10 to B11, etc. In order to make the formula to use the weightings for each student's marks, we have to use absolute referencing, meaning Excel will not adjust those references no matter where you move that formula. Syntax-wise, the difference for absolute and relative referencing is that absolute referencing has a $ in front of the column and row part of the reference. Let's undo what we have done by pressing Ctrl Z for Windows and Command Z for Mac. Click on F2 and go to the formula bar. We will now add $ in front of the B and 10 for cells B10, and do the same for C10 and D10 now. Press enter once you're done editing the formula. This will make the active cell F3. So we need to click on F2 again to make it the active cell, in order to fill the cells below with our new formula. Let's use the square dot method to fill cells from F2 to F6. This time you should get the numbers that are showing on the screen. You can click on any of those cells to look at the formula. You will see that B10, C10, and D10 have not changed. There is one last type of referencing that I'll like to introduce to you, which is mixed references. You see how we have to put a $ in front of the column letter and the row number to make it an absolute reference? If we only put the $ in either the column letter or the row number, then it is a mixed reference. For example, if we had F $6, then the 6 will stay the same no matter where we copy and paste this reference, but the F will change relatively. Or if we had $F6, the F will stay the same and the 6 will change. If you chose B2 times B $10, then you are correct. Since we need to reference all the numbers in the range B2 to D6 by dragging the formula horizontally and vertically, and then dragging it horizontally for each row after that. As for referencing the weightings, we need to ensure that we are using row 10. Therefore, we needed a $sign in front of the row number, hence B $10. We don't need the letter part to be absolute because the formula needs to move to the next weighting for the next test. This concludes our video on Excel basics. I'll see you on the next video.